Girl, you have got to try this Laneige lip mask. Trust me, my lips needed that love.
Love these vanilla vibes from Kayali. That top note is just so smooth. Smooth and stunning. That's what you get with this K18 hair mask.
Those brands everybody's talking about, they're at Sephora. Discover the hype with the hottest names in beauty, including Laneige, Kayali, K18, and Rare Beauty. Only at Sephora.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
I feel like Paddington 2 is one of those kind of like the best sequels, like the Toy Story 2s and those sorts of things, where it does everything that the first one does, but it just ramps it up and does it better.
Hugh Grant, phenomenal. Like, he's in that bit of his career where he just, either he doesn't care or he just wants to enjoy himself, or both. And I'm so here for it. I loved him in this.
I just want to say, like, unless I missed something, they sent a bear to prison with no evidence.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today I'm joined by Helen.
Hi.
Neel.
Hello.
And Lizzie.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking Paddington 2. Thank you as always to the mighty people for their mighty tunes, and thank you to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his editing skills on this podcast. Please do remember to head to Spotify and Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you can do a rating and give us a 5-star rating and a glowing review. And also, if you want to join in the conversation with us, do find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod or on Instagram at Flixwatcher.
Hello film fans, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Our guests today are Neel and Lizzie. Over to you please, Neel, to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, I'm Neel, and I'm a film blogger, I suppose film and TV blogger. I also occasionally podcast here and there, including on this one, of course. And
I've heard you in places.
I've been a big film fan for many years, and yeah, it's just something I've always been passionate about. I love writing about them and I love watching them, and that's me.
Fair enough. And yourself, Lizzie?
Hi, I'm Lizzie. Nothing as exciting as Neel. I don't blog or anything in my spare time, but I'm also an avid film fan. It's actually how me and Neel were set up. We were set up on a blind date by a mutual friend because we're both really into films. Nice. 7 years later, it's still going all right. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
So did you go on film dates, the first dates, or was it just, hi, you go into a corner and talk about your films and don't let anyone else hear you kind of conversation?
I think from what I remember, Neel tried to come up with something film themed, but we just ended up going to a pub. Yeah, so
it's an easy first date, isn't it?
Yeah,
I was looking for like a film themed place to go for a drink, and a lot of the places, like a lot of the pubs in films, are either fake or just horrible in real life. So I just couldn't find anywhere, and we went to Sherlock. Is it Sherlock or Sherlock Holmes in
Sherlock Holmes,
Charing Cross?
Yeah,
which is it was very nice. We go there every year for our anniversary.
Where do you live in London?
We're in Woolwich, southeast.
Oh, okay. Because an easy one would be to go to what is the Boogaloo in Highgate, North London, and that was the inspiration for the Winchester in, I was going to say Scott Pilgrim, not Scott Pilgrim at all.
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's probably quite good actually, to go to a lot of go to film pubs from films. There must be an Instagram about that somewhere. There must be an Instagram account. If there's not, let's set one up.
There's got to be like a film pub tour,
or
something like that. And if not, then I'm trademarking that right now.
London Film Pub Tour.
Yeah.
So we're here today to talk about Paddington, which is your choice, Lizzie. Can you tell us why you chose Paddington? and then give us a synopsis in 60 seconds or less. I'll get the timer up in which to do so.
Yeah, sure. I chose Paddington 2 because I just love it. I just think it's the perfect family film, and it does what all those great family films do, where it's got something for everyone. So it's got the jokes and the wordplay and the puns for the adults, as well as like the cuteness and the colour and the fun for the kids, but also has real heart behind it as well. So yeah, that's why I chose it.
Cool. And the timer for your 60-second synopsis starts now.
So Paddington 2 is a sequel to the first Paddington. I believe it was released in 2017. It's a live-action animated comedy film, and it follows, obviously, the story of Paddington Bear, who's living with the Brown family, and the main focus is on him trying to get a birthday present for his Aunt Lucy, who's back in Peru, but the book that he wants to buy for her gets stolen, and thus leads on to a big action comedy caper, and I won't say any more.
It is a caper, actually, isn't it? I'm going to just ask Helen a quick question because I'm not sure the answer to this. Helen, is this the first time you've seen either Paddington film?
Oh my God. So I really don't. I'm pretty sure I've seen them both, but I can't for the life of me recall. I'm pretty sure I've
Neil's
seen.
face, dear listener, is...
I have a feeling I'm going to be a little bit of an outlier in the conversation tonight. I think I've seen it before.
As in not in the last couple of days.
Oh no, I watched it for this because I was like, I really need to make sure I have seen this.
But yeah, so Lizzie and Neel, you've seen this before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We saw it at the cinema together, I believe.
Right.
And then,
cool.
we've seen it like loads of times since then. It's definitely got good rewatch.
It's great when it came to Netflix as well, because it's not that it's difficult to watch, but also just things like that. Netflix makes it way easier to watch because both of them are on there. Paddington 1 and Paddington 2 are on there, which is like, all right, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think we realised until we were kind of like deciding on what films to talk about today. And then I was like, oh my God, Paddington's on there. We have to do Paddington. So
why did you go for Paddington 2 versus Paddington 1?
I mean, I love them both, but I feel like Paddington 2 is one of those kind of like the best sequels, like the Toy Story 2s and those sorts of things, where it does everything that the first one does, but it just ramps it up and does it better. Yeah, that's the main reason why I would choose that. And also, like, Hugh Grant is kind of the MVP in this film. Let's be honest, as much as they love everyone else and everything else in it too, Hugh Grant is just absolutely hilarious. He's gold. He's so good.
Where do you sit on Paddington 1 versus 2, Neel?
Yeah, I think Paddington 2 is a superior film. And I know that people say, oh, the original's always better. No, it's not. Toy Story 2 is better. Empire Strikes Back is better. We can carry on with this for a bit. Maybe not that long. But Paddington 2 is just so much better. It's funnier. It's got more heart. And they don't try and do the same thing. Like they did the whole thing in the first one where, he's an outcast. He's not really that welcome. Then he is welcomed. And they don't try and try and replicate it. They just sort of carry it on the story where the Browns love him, trying to get him back to safety. And it is genius to have Paddington get into trouble, and all he's doing is trying to buy a birthday present. It's just so clever because they just of all the things that could happen, he went to prison. All he was trying to do is buy Aunt Lucy a birthday present, and that was it. Very clever. And yeah, I completely agree with Lizzie. Hugh Grant, phenomenal. Like, he's in that bit of his career where he just either he doesn't care or he just wants to enjoy himself, or both. And I'm so here for it. I loved him in this.
Helen, have you worked out? Have you seen Paddington 1 yet? Because I'm going to ask you the question 1 versus 2.
So I definitely think this one is more memorable.
Is that because it's the only one you've seen?
And I think, yeah, I mean, the first one in things like this, they're always kind of like the scene setting, and you kind of have to get to know everyone. And then by the time you get to the second one, you don't need to waste time on that. So you can go straight into the story and kind of get into it a little bit more. And you kind of have an idea of what the audience wants and what things you can push a little bit further. So it feels more kind of comfortable this time around with Paddington. You don't need to have intros to everyone and kind of explain why there's a bear living in a very posh area of London.
I'm going to buck the trend here and actually say I prefer Paddington 1.
Ooh.
And I think the reason is both just the scenarios I saw them. So Paddington 1 I saw, it was like a Sunday morning screening, like 10 o'clock. It was me by myself, as in I went to cinema by myself, but surrounded by like families, and all the kids were like laughing their heads off, absolutely like enjoying it. And I got the buzz off them. And then Paddington 2, I saw it again by myself, but I went to like a mid-afternoon screening, like on a Thursday because I just couldn't be arsed with work that day. And then it was me and other single blokes like smattered around, and there's a different cinematic experience. Whereas I can definitely concede that there's definite benefits 1 versus 2, but just that first introduction to it. Also because Paddington 1, it was such a surprise because I was just like, how is this film even going to work at all? And you're like, oh, it actually just really does. So I like it when it far exceeds your expectations. And 2, I was expecting to meet it, and it did better than I thought it was going to do. I was like, well, how are you going to beat Paddington 1? And it does, but in my heart, I think it's a Paddington 1 thing. But Hugh Grant, I mean, we've had Hugh Grant on quite a few times, Helen. I was just looking back quickly. We've had him on Notting Hill, which is old sappy new Hugh Grant. Bridget Jones's Diary, which is he's definitely towards the tossery Hugh Grant. So I think this phase that people talk about him being not the sad sap actually goes back quite a ways. It goes back 20 years. I think that's probably the first time I was like, oh, actually, he's playing a bit of a knobhead, and it does it well. And here it's just like finessing it every single time. It's finessing every single appearance now, I think.
Here it's the narcissism he has in this. He's so funny. Like the bit where like they're in his house and he's got like all those pictures of himself, and they're like all his old kind of like acting shots, which are just hilarious. And the way he gives himself up, like he kind of like the way that Mrs. Brown figures it out is that he happens to mention like, oh, the beautiful blue eyes.
Yeah.
He just can't help himself. Like it's just those sorts of little details that are just it's just so funny. Yeah, I love it.
And has anyone seen The Undoing here?
No. I think so. Is that it was a series. I forget what it was now.
Yeah, it's a series.
Oh, that's him and Nicole Kidman, isn't it? It's like the two Paddington villains uniting.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is in also moustache twirly, even though it doesn't have moustache twirly villain style as well. So he's definitely left that 4 weddings and a funeral phase behind him.
Yeah.
But Pirates and Adventure of Scientists as well. I think he's probably, Helen. We need to. Someone who's listening, can you go through our filmography?
He's
About
the most
a Boy?
featured actor.
Yeah.
About a Boy.
I don't know if it's him.
The Gentleman. I'm not even sure that's come out yet. So, and this year he's come out with. He was in Dungeons and Dragons and also Glass Onion, which is scope of last year.
I was going to say Night Out too.
Was a very small cameo, obviously, but
I mean, he should just come on here. Like, forget his films. Like, Hugh, come on. I know you'd have some fun. He's got a good sense of humour.
Well, now he's able to talk. Now SAG's closed. Now the SAG strike's finished as we record this. He'll be able to.
Yeah, he can do it once.
That's the only thing that's stopping him.
He's quite moustache twirly in Dungeons and Dragons as well, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did enjoy him in that. I didn't totally love the film, but it's just like that seems to be just what he does now. It's ridiculous and it's pantomime and it's fantastic.
So he's just been typecast in two different ways now, hasn't he? Before he's the foppish guy, now he's the kind of moustache twirly villain guy, which is whatever you want, I guess.
Or an Oompa Loompa.
Yeah.
Let's see how. But at least, so Oompa Loompa 1 is being directed by the director of Paddington 1 and 2. So that's the main thing it's got going for it, I feel. We'll see how that goes. Paddington, as a well, just talk about Paddington and the Browns. Anyone want to pick up on that?
I love Paddington. He's just, and I think the choice to cast Ben Whishaw, because I know originally it was Colin Firth, and they decided to recast it because they wanted a younger sounding voice, and I think that makes sense because I think Ben Whishaw's got that kind of perfect kind of combination of like kind of like a childlike quality whilst also still having like emotion and heart and depth, and I just love him, and I think the relationship between him and the Browns is just really pure and lovely and sweet, and it's what anchors the film, really, isn't it? Because that's the whole story of the first film is in finding a family in the UK, and then what anchors the film going forward is the love that the family have for him and vice versa. That's why they want to save him when he goes to prison, and the bit where he thinks that they've forgotten about him is just like heartbreaking. Like, no, Paddington, we still love you.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think the Browns are a really interesting family. They're a good dynamic as well. Like they all just get along with Paddington in all these different ways, and he helps them in all these different ways. So they've got a very good, like, he slots in so perfectly. But not just with the Browns, but with the neighbours as well, as you see with the second film especially. minus, I forget the character's name, but the one who's a bit of a busybody.
Peter Capaldi's character. I can't remember his name either. But he's the one who's kind of like it's kind of factoring in, like, not to go like too political or anything, but it's kind of like the whole, like, you know, anti-immigrant sentiment, I guess, you know, and the way that, you know, he's like, oh, I'm raising the level to mild hysteria, you know, when when Paddington escapes, or like when Paddington's like cleaning the gutters and he's like, I wouldn't want an undesirable on my roof, you know, and things like that. But he's the only one, like, the rest of the community really like welcome him in and like want him there.
Those little comments, they're so interesting, because obviously it's done in a Paddington light-hearted sort of way. But if you just break them down, they're pretty horrible comments if you really look at them. Like, he's not a particularly nice person. Maybe they'll change that in the third one, but although they'll probably be mostly in Peru, but you know.
But that's also one of the reasons why I love the film. It does that, but it doesn't moralize. It never feels like it's kind of preaching to you or being soapboxy. It's just like, here's a multicultural, diverse London, and here's an immigrant being like welcomed into a community. And it's not like a smashing you over the head with a hammer. It's just, you know, this is part of the story.
It's just normal.
Yeah, and it's accepted.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Yeah, I like that. I think you need some kind of. You got the villain, you got the big villain, the big bad, I guess, in Hugh Grant's character. But then I think you also have that. I think there'll always be, and I think the films will always benefit from a smaller antagonist, which just kind of gets under people's growth, under people's kind of skin, and helps the other community kind of band together as well. Because no one else in the community like Peter Capaldi's character. They all recognise him as a busybody and a bit of a twat. And it's good to see them like coalescing against him. And Paddington doesn't really care about him. He's just like, mate, just like, I can't be bothered. Yeah. But everyone else is defending Paddington on their behalf, and it's really nice to see that. And with the Browns, I think I fall in love with Sally Hawkins every time I see this film, or any of the Paddington films. She's just like, delightful as a person. Helen?
I think Paddington is okay. Like, I know a lot of people really, 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 really love this film, and it's got a lot of heart and it's very sweet. But I don't know. I think it's okay, and I find Paddington a little bit kind of stressful. He's a bit problematic to have around because he breaks stuff and he gets marmalade everywhere. And
on your hair if you're Tom
you're like
Conti.
what Mr. Brown's like at the start of the first film when like, you know, Paddington's like flooding the house and whatever, and Mr. Brown's like having a heart attack about it.
We're about to witness your transition from not really liking him then to loving him. It'll happen.
Maybe. I mean, it's really weird. Like, Netflix said there's a 55% chance of me liking this, and it's recommended some pretty terrible films much higher than that. So it was a very strange experience. I mean, it is very sweet. I think watching it this time round, I was a bit like, it's an awful lot of Wes Anderson-iness going around in this film, which I feel maybe people kind of enjoy that bit with the prison uniforms, and the framing is very Grand Budapest, and there's a few bits in there with the breakout. But yeah, I mean, the Browns.
Build your fits of the day with Abercrombie's newest denim drop. I'll tell you where to start. Abercrombie's 90s straight jean goes with any shirt from tees to sweater polos. Super versatile. Their loose and baggy jeans are more trend forward, so I grab those when I go out with friends. Right now, get 25% off on almost everything at Abercrombie. Offers valid in stores and online January 23rd, 2025 to January 28th, 2025. In U.S. and Canada, exclusions apply as indicated. Online price reflects discount.
Sally Hawkins is great. I feel that they're all quite posh, and it could have been done with a little bit more variety, possibly, to make it a bit more, I don't know, a bit more edgy, a bit more like the real streets of London. It's very much a kind of Mary Poppins London, isn't it? I think maybe it's that a little bit. A lot of people love it.
Hold on, you say you don't like Mary Poppins?
Not massively.
No.
I mean, I'm kind of.
No.
I think like it feels I think when I was getting towards the end of watching it, it felt a little bit of a kind of like extended John Lewis advert experience for me. I know people have it. I know people like. I really tried this time. I was like, I really need to get on the Paddington train, but I don't know. And also, I don't know if you watched Passages this year. And if you've seen Paddington and you watch that, it's quite a strange audio experience. No spoilers. But you're like, oh, there's Paddington's voice.
Oh, I didn't think that. And now I'm going to think that. No. Now I can't watch Paddington ever again. I kind of get it though, because I don't feel he's suited to the gritty streets of London, but maybe something a bit more real and like less of a massive high-rise townhouse situation. But I don't know. I still like it.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that about Wes Anderson, because I think most people noticed in like the prison section, like the aesthetic of it is very Wes Anderson. But I noticed that too. But I'm not a fan of Wes Anderson films at all. I think they're too. I like they look beautiful, but I just think they're too kind of quirky for the sake of it, and they don't make me feel anything. Most importantly, and I think the thing with Paddington is that like it always makes me feel something. Like, so I think that's the difference. It has that kind of chocolate box cuteness, but it's also got like real heart and emotion behind that. Whereas I feel like Wes Anderson films are just like, oh well, they look very nice, but they don't do anything for me other than that.
So maybe,
but I know I'm an outlier.
So
Helen's a big Wes Anderson fan.
Flip,
yeah. So it's like literally opposite
maybe
sides
that's a
of the same
poll.
coin.
Maybe we need to spread that wider. Can you like Wes Anderson and Paddington? Well, yeah, because I like both.
I do.
I think Neel.
I was going to say, I don't think that's the two extremes that we're trying to bridge the gap. But it's fine. It's very sweet. Like, and I do know a lot of people love the slightly chaotic bear.
Before we go to the scores, there's one thing you touched upon. Well, someone said Paddington train. But I want to talk about the prison sequence and also the train sequence. The prison sequence, I think, that's where you would get Paddington against all the criminals, and how he wins them over in spite of the fact that miraculously everyone's wearing pink because of one red sock, which only went into one machine. Doesn't matter.
So it's a weird plot point.
Yeah,
there's a lot of big plot points. I just want to say, like, unless I missed something, they sent a bear to prison with no evidence. Because if he stole the book, like, what did he do with it? Because they've arrested him and they sent him to prison.
There was evidence. There were paw prints, and there was
where was the book?
There was no book.
But then they can't send him to prison for that.
Can they not?
Well, he wasn't just sent to prison for that. He sent to prison for one of my favourite jokes in the film, where the prison guard said, "You're sent to prison for grand theft and grievous barbarly harm," and he shaved the judge's hair off.
Yes,
it makes me chuckle every single time.
The judge had a vendetta against him.
Yeah. It's partly the.
He got sent to prison for like bad haircuts in London. There'd be no like barbers left. It's a scary experience, isn't it? I think probably going to a barber's in London is as scary as maybe going to prison with Paddington.
I'm not going to comment.
No. So Brendan Gleeson's knuckles and all the other guys in the prison. I really like that the whole section. It's nonsensical, but I just want to make marmalade at the same time.
I do.
It seems a very intensive process for not much reward.
What, do you like marmalade?
Well, you're not going to eat it every day, are you? I mean, you could have it on toast, but what else would you do with it?
I don't know.
It's a fair point. You could bake with it. I'd bake with it. I'd put it in a cake. But I think I like the whole like prison thing. It just shows sort of like, I know it's basic, but I love it because it shows how he wins them over despite making all their their prison outfits pink. And the one washing machine thing I never thought about before. Now I'm going to always think about it every time I watch it. Thanks, Kobe. But it's really nice. Like he wins everyone over, even like the toughest guy there, just by being himself, by being nice. Because
there's also the message of looking for the good in everyone, isn't it? That's the whole point.
That's the main thing with Paddington. Right? He's looking for the good in everyone. His main weapon is a hard stare, which melts people's hearts and makes them feel uncomfortable. And I wish that there was someone who's around to give Suella Braverman a hard stare and just like, oh yeah, I've been a knobhead. But I
maybe
think
we should Clockwork Orange her with Paddington until.
Oh my God.
until she
This has gone
becomes
dark.
nice.
And the train sequence, we've seen a few train sequences this year on film, and this is still one of my favourite ones, actually.
I agree.
And there's a bit where he's got the toffee apples on top of the and then using like suctions. That scene just always makes me just laugh. It's brilliant. I don't know how they did that, but it's just brilliant.
Trained a bear to do it and then copied it.
It's very sort of a ridiculous Mission Impossible style.
Yeah,
in a way. But yeah, I love that bit. It's fun. There is that bit where he throws a coconut at Phoenix Buchanan, and he's just so lucky he doesn't like fall backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah, I think I literally said that as we were watching it today. I'm like, if he'd fallen backwards, he would have gone on the tracks with that book, and yeah, that wouldn't have worked at all. But that's the thing with these films, you've got to kind of buy into these little points that are like, oh, what if it did this or what if it did that? No, I love the train sequence. I think it's great. It's definitely up there amidst train sequences. I think The Wrong Trousers will always be my favourite train sequence in anything
that's
ever.
A great one, isn't it?
It's the best thing ever. But yeah, it's a fun kind of action caper ending to the film.
The Wrong Trousers one is like one of those things where, as a kid, I was like, he hasn't got enough track in that box to make it make sense, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter. That's fine.
Like again with the red sock, I noticed it in the cinema at the time. I was like, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's great. Is there anything else, guys, want to say before we head to the scores?
The ending always gets me every single time. It's like you just can't not. Even though you know it's coming, I'm just like, we just look at each, like whenever me and Neel watch together, we just look at each other at the end, and always both of us are just a little bit like, a little bit emotional, a little bit teary.
There's some dust in my eye.
I'm not crying, it's just remaining on my face.
Yeah, it's just so lovely. Really heartwarming. And also past, like, obviously, although that's the ending, the post-credit sequence with Phoenix doing his song and dance number in the prison is absolutely genius. It's so good. And I only found out this year that's actually a Stephen Sondheim song.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, from a Sondheim musical. Yeah. Rain on the
Roof. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's an actual song.
It totally does, yeah. But yeah, I love that bit. It's just great.
I was going to say one more thing quickly. If you were watching it in company, at every few seconds did someone point and go, oh, that's that person.
Yeah.
Because this feels like the most, oh, that's that person from that TV advert or that film, or when I know them where they're from film that I've seen in a long time. Like, it's not quite a cameo because they're kind of apart, but it sort of feels like it's, you know, if you're watching this at Christmas, you're not going to be able to get any peace because every time someone pops up, a different person is going to go, but that's that person.
I think the prison scene was, I do like when you see a film recently and then you realise that's the first time you saw someone like Jamie Demetrio, for example, is in the prison sequence. I'm like, that's Stath.
Stath, yeah.
Always what does Fleabag call him? He's in Fleabag as well. The guy with the big teeth in Fleabag. What season 1 of Fleabag? He's the guy with the rat teeth. I think she calls him. So yeah, so there's definitely things like that.
Bus rodent.
Bus rodent. Is that?
Bus rodent. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then
is that what you shouted when he came up? You're like, bus rodent.
I've never seen it, but I always think Staff lets flat.
Yeah. And also, like, Noah Taylor's one of the prisoners too, and like everything else listed him in, he's just an absolute arsehole. So he's the one who chops Jamie's hand off in Game of Thrones. He was in Peaky Blinders playing like one of Tommy's kind of adversaries as well. Like he's always like this very threatening, kind of menacing. So to see him in like kind of this sort of film, it's like, oh, okay, you can do this too.
Oh, okay. I never knew what his name was.
Yeah. No,
also in a lot of Wes Anderson as well. He pops up.
Okay.
In there as well. But it's that film where it's that person who's from that thing, who's also in this thing. But when you watch this, you didn't realise it was them until you saw it now.
I think it's a lot of, this is the kind of film almost like all the Harry Potters where it just soaked up a lot of UK-based actors.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Paddington 3 will have a lot more of these. One thing I really liked is seeing, for the first time, I think, since the Kumars, seeing Mira Sayal and Sandeep Bhaskar in the same film, even though they're not.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I knew that they were. Oh yeah. That's so funny.
But even though they're not related, I don't even think they talk to each other in the film.
No.
So stuff like that, which is definitely
she's
really
in the
cool.
courtroom, isn't she?
Yeah, she's like a barrister or something.
Yeah.
Should we head to the scores?
I'm Sam Clements, host of the 90 Minutes or Less Film Festival, another podcast in the Stripped Media family, a podcast that celebrates movies under 90 minutes long. Each episode, I'm joined by a special guest who selects a movie to join our prestigious lineup. Past guests have included fellow Stripped Media family members Martin and Sam from Song by Song, and Kobe from Flixwatcher, and Dave from The Wire Stripped. Search for us now on the app you're currently listening to this podcast, or join us at 90minfilmfest.com.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of the scores are out of 5, and you can have decimal places if you wish. And we will start with you, please, Lizzie, with your recommendability.
Oh, it's got to be a 5. Like, I love it. It's one of my favourite films, so it has to be a 5. Always recommend it to anybody.
Neel.
5. Yeah, I can't. There's no way. If someone asked me to recommend a family film, it would be this or something like this. I love this film. One of my favourites. Always makes me laugh, always makes me cry. Brilliant.
Helen.
It wouldn't be my first pick at all for like what is the best kind of like all-rounder family film. I think probably it would be Toy Story 2 for me. I think that kind of is the one. I mean, I'm not really that fussed for this, but I know a lot of people love it, so I'll give it 4.5. Just because you all love it so much. It's kind of fun. It's just, I don't know. When I watch it, it makes me realise that maybe am I just a cold-hearted, cynical person who can't love Paddington.
That's a debate to have another time. I was going to just under 5, but I think I need to give it 5.
You've got to.
Because when I saw Paddington 1, I told my wife, I think I wasn't going to give it 5 because I know there's so many people who are like, no, that's not going to work. That doesn't make sense as a film. And my wife was one of them where I came out Paddington 1, I was like, you got to see Paddington. She's like, why do I watch that? That makes no sense as a film. And then I went to see Paddington 2, I was like, you got to watch Paddington. She's like, no. And then it's only when we had our kid and she watched it with him, then she's like, oh, okay, sure, fine. I get it. It's great. So I think sometimes some films are just harder to recommend. You try and recommend to people, but the kind of the premise doesn't make sense. Yeah. And you kind of just think maybe it's too much of a kid's film, maybe, but it's just not. And even though you go to bat for it, people still kind of bat it away and like no. But
I don't know anyone who doesn't love this. Like this is the thing. Everywhere I go, people love it, and I'm like,
I think when I saw the first film, I remember some friends being like, "Oh, is that not like a kids' film?" Thinking it was quite juvenile. But I think once you've seen the first film and get like the sense of the sensibility of it, that it does do that kind of the thing that all those great films do, like has stuff for the kids and stuff for the adults. Then I don't know anyone who saw the first one who was like, "Oh no, I don't really fancy the second one." It's like no,
absolutely.
Like
repeat viewing score, Lizzie.
Repeat viewing score again. I'd have to go for a 5 because we've watched it so many times. I think since like we saw it once on the big screen, but we've watched it so many times at home since then. It's just really heartwarming and lovely. So yeah.
Neel.
5 as well. Yeah, I think we've watched it, I don't know, maybe 20 times or something ridiculous like that. I don't know how many times. The thing is, it's been on TV at Christmas, so we watched it then. We watched it in the cinema. We watched it at my mum's once when it was on it again at Christmas, and then now it's on Netflix, so you can watch it whenever. And it's just an easy watch. And if you've got, it's not one of those films that I would say, if you've got nothing to watch it, but it's also one of those films, if you've got nothing to watch it. Yeah, it's great.
Or if you're just feeling rubbish, you've had a bit of a bad day and you want something just kind of heartwarming and cozy, and it's your one.
Helen.
I'm not going to give it as high as you, I'm afraid. I'm going to give it a 3. I mean, I don't even know. I have seen it twice. I must have seen it twice. It's been out a lot longer than I thought. I thought it was more this side, but it's not it's the other side.
You mean of the pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I understood what you were talking about there.
I knew it.
I'm gonna have to give it a 5. Yeah, I haven't seen it as much as you guys have, but I know it will be on constant rotation in our house, and it is an easy thing to say. Yeah, let's just watch Paddington 2, and I can watch it and pay attention, or I can watch it and doze in and out, or I can watch it and might be doing other stuff and come back in and be like, oh, it's this bit, and then walk out again. So it's a pretty unique film to have that kind of sensibility to it. Small screen score, Lizzie.
I think I'd still love it even if it was on a small screen, but my preference would be not for a small screen. So I'll maybe go like 4.
By small screen, we just mean not in the cinema.
Okay. Okay,
So
if
like
it's like a TV screen, then definitely I'd still give it a 5, absolutely. Yeah. Still love it. It's not one of those, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's like colourful and it's got like the action sequences and things, but it's not one of those that's like, you absolutely have to see it on a big screen to get the best out of it. I think, you still get all the warmth and the heart from it, watching it on TV at home. So yeah.
Neel.
I'd say 5 as well. I think it just works on any screen. I don't feel it's inherently cinematic because there's certain things you want to watch in the cinema. And like, whilst we did see this in the cinema and it was fun, it works just as well at home on our TV. So yeah, I'd go 5.
Helen.
Yeah, Paddington's not getting me out to the cinema, so I'm going to give it a 5 for small screen as well. I'm just not going to go and see it at the cinema. I'm
going to go 4.5 because I think I'd like to see this in the cinema with a similar kind of scenario of being surrounded by families watching it rather than just a bunch of sad blokes with the Cineworld card, which is 90% of my viewing experience. I think a Paddington 1 and 2 and then Paddington 3 at the Prince Charles Cinema would be a great...
Yes, that would be amazing.
I'll tweet them.
Engagement score, Lizzie.
Yes, 5. Yeah, I just love it. I'll give it 5 for everything. So,
I think I would have been disappointed if you'd have dropped a score on something. I was like, yeah, this is a committed to 5 across the board score if I ever saw one.
Yeah, definitely.
Neel.
5. I can't up and give it 5. It's as soon as it's on, you just leave it on and you just don't turn it off. There's a good handful of films like that Lizzie and I are, I suppose, obsessed with, and this is definitely one of them.
Helen.
I think you've already said it in that it's a film that you can kind of like have on and not pay attention at the same time as have on and pay attention. And I think for all it's kind of like appealed to adults, it is quite simple in terms of its plotting and storytelling. So I'm going to give it a 3.5 for engagement. I don't think there's any great surprises along the way. And yeah, it is, it's kind of... You could put it on at Christmas with the entire family talking all over it and trying to remember who's who and still kind of check what's going on with people talking.
I've just gone to our scoreboard because I'm interested to see where this is going to land. Sorry, you said 5.
Steamrolled it.
No. So was that 5 for engagement? Sorry, Helen.
It was 3.5.
Oh, sorry.
3.5. Yeah.
I just said the 5 bit in there. And I'm going to go for 4.5 because I'm just at that stage where I've seen it so many times. That's why I feel I can kind of pick it up and drop it where I need to. If I just need to do other things, then it's great that I can leave like Milo in front of the TV and he'd be happy. So 4.5, and that gives us an overall score of. So our top scoring film at the moment is When Harry Met Sally. It's joint with The Fugitive at 4.78125. People who can't do maths in their head and keep a track of the scores. Well, so people who can probably know what the score is already. But Neel, Lizzie, do you think this is beating that or less than that?
I think that's maybe a bit less. I think the 3.5 might have brought it down a bit. But
yes, I think someone in this group has made it less.
if it doesn't score quite as highly as When Harry Met Sally, I'll allow that, because When Harry Met Sally is one of my all-time favourite films, and it is the best rom-com of all time. So I won't feel too badly if it doesn't score quite as well as that.
I think it's close.
It scores 4.68. Oh, sorry, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong thing now. 4.68750. So it is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in there. It slots just below What We Do in the Shadows and above Silence of the Lambs.
That's quite a sandwiching there.
Absolutely. I thought it was going to be high, but yeah. I thought it might challenge number 1. but it's just
Sorry,
not.
guys. I know. I am cruel and heartless and have no soul.
It's all right. We forgive you.
So Neel and Lizzie, thank you very much for picking a film. Can you tell us, everyone who's listening, where they can find you online? Also, goodbye to the listeners.
I'm on Twitter at _ Neil's Real Deal, all double E's, because I don't know why, because it just sounded funny. And same on Instagram.
And Lizzie?
I'm literally I'm nowhere near as Neil's far more active on it than me. But I'm Lizzie _ Swindells on Instagram and Lizzie1708 on Twitter.
All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes and Rockwood Audio's editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.